All right, well, thank you everyone for being here. Appreciate that.
Yeah, so thank y'all for being here. Like Yesenia said, well, my name is Mireya de Lara Vargas, and I am a second year grad student here in the Counseling Center. And yeah, this is our presentation.
Yeah. And I'm Yesenia Lades Martinez. I'm a first year graduate assistant with the Counseling Center as well. And then just before we get started, I do want to remind you that, as questions come up, go ahead and drop your questions in the Q&A portion versus the chat option. And then towards the end of the presentation, we'll dedicate some time to go through those questions, and hopefully we're able to answer it. All right, and today's presentation is on stress management, a guide to mental wellness. And we hope that today's presentation can be helpful to you all as you go through your career here at Texas State.
All right, and so starting off with the overview of what I'll be covering for today. So these are the different points that I'll be moving through or moving along as I go through the presentation. And so starting off with alleviation tools. So stress isn't really something that can be prevented within our lives, regardless of, kind of what stage we move along through. So even as, we go ahead and graduate college doesn't mean that we'll be stopping experiencing stress, right? We will still experience stress, but these are just kind of alleviation tools and kind of tricks and tips to help ease the stress that we feel and to, lighten the impact that stress carries in our daily lives, especially as right now as college students. Next up after that is the signs of stress. So something that you'll hear both of us kind of repeat along as we go through the presentation is that stress is something that really does look and feel differently depending on the person. So it's really important to be aware of how stress may present itself for you personally, and also just being cognizant that, for other people, they may experience and deal with stress differently. Next up is assessing stress in our lives. So this is really just the time where, we take the time to investigate how stress may come up for us in the different areas of our lives, especially, when we're going ahead and balancing different aspects of our lives and are busy with things. After that is self-sabotage or sabotaging ourselves. So, for many college students, it's not out of the norm or uncommon for a lot of college students to partake in self-sabotaging behaviors. For example, something that comes up right away for me that I think of is procrastination, right? So it's definitely worth noting and mentioning and talking about. After that, we'll talk about practical approaches for letting go of stress. And then after that, we will be talking about planning for stress reduction. And so that will be kind of the stress management or learning to manage your stress portion of the presentation. After that, we will be briefly covering Counseling Center services that are available to y'all as currently enrolled Texas State students. So definitely stick around for that. And as Yesenia mentioned earlier, if any question comes up for anyone, you can go ahead and pop that into the chat box, and we will have time for those at the end.
All right, so jumping right in with alleviation tools. So these first few points really hit on Maslow's hierarchy of needs as you practice the basics of self-care. So anytime someone is struggling to cover their basic needs, such as shelter, food, clothing, etc., it can make everything else a lot harder and sets up barriers when you're wanting to achieve certain things. With sleep, ideally, you should be getting anywhere from 7 to 8 hours of sleep each night. And I do want to acknowledge that as college students, sleep is the first thing that we sacrifice when it comes to midterms, finals, studying for tests, getting papers or projects done. But maintaining a healthy sleep schedule is a part of practicing basic self-care, right? Just remember that having a healthy sleep schedule is a big part of taking care of yourself. Things that you could do to kind of help with this is setting a timer for a good stopping point. Maybe taking a nap throughout the day if you feel like your body needs it, and try to set a regular bedtime throughout the week. So, sleep is how our mind and body reset and help us prepare for the next day. So eating is another big part of that, making sure that you're feeding your body healthy foods that give you the energy to get through the day. Try not to skip breakfast, which I know is easier said than done. If you know that you'll be having an extra busy day and you won't have time to cook or grab food on campus, um, packing those snacks with you so that you at least have something to munch on, and also keeping water handy to stay hydrated, right? So if you know you're going to sit in back to back lectures, packing those snacks and water will come in handy and give you the energy to stay alert during class. It can be challenging to focus on school when you're hangry. I know that I'm not the most attentive student whenever my focus is on when I'm going to be able to eat next and where I'll be able to eat, right? Next on this list is, staying active, and this can look like several things. So if you prefer having a set workout schedule and using the gym, that's great. But staying active can also be taking a walk around your dorm or your apartment complex, breathing in some fresh air, maybe biking, swimming, um, dancing, whatever the case may be. Whatever it is that you enjoy doing, try it and incorporate it into your schedule. We also strongly recommend building connections and meaningful relationships while in college. These are important as stress can be a heavy burden to carry alone. It's normal for it to take some time before you find your person or group of people whom you feel comfortable with. It's very easy to see other people and think that they just clicked right away, but that's not always the case. Remember that social connections look different for each person. And we also strongly recommend utilizing university resources such as Slack, the Student Learning and Assistance Center here on campus. It's great for when you're needing help on any of your coursework. Maybe math is not your best subject and you're struggling. Slack is there to assist you and help you so that you can perform better and alleviate some of the stress you might experience, right? Um, we also recommend, getting involved. So student involvement here on campus hosts tons of events daily and weekly. There's even over 400 plus student organizations, so there is a little bit of something for everyone. We have the Student Health Center for all your physical needs. And we also have the Compassion Advocacy Resource and Education or Care Center here on campus. They work to enhance student retention and promote student success. They also provide advocacy, resources, and education. They're able to assist in providing absence notifications and academic consultation. They do host care webinars called Brilliant Bobcats. They do have some emergency funding. They offer peer mentoring, student parent support, and foster care alumni support. And these are just some of the few campus resources that we mentioned, but these are not exclusive. There are tons more at Texas State University and in the San Marcos community.
And so moving along into signs of stress. So like I mentioned previously, stress really does display itself in different forms. And so being able to really distinguish that for yourself is really important. And so these listed right here: physical, mental, emotional. You might have previously experienced a combination of these things, or maybe now in college, you've noticed that maybe you experience a certain specific one a lot more, or, things like that. It's important to really acknowledge when you are experiencing physical, mental, emotional signs of stress, or like I said, also a combination of these things, in order to really not only acknowledge it, but to then give yourself a break, right? To do something about it. So these are the times where we need to go ahead and practice our self-care, right? And this is something that is really up to your likes and what you find comforting, right? So if that's needing to go ahead and read a book for your own comfort and not necessarily academic or school related in order to kind of relieve some stress, go ahead and do that, right? And so moving into kind of the physical aspects of stress that may come up for some people. So some people may experience kind of constant headaches when they're really stressed out. For some, it may be like a nausea or appetite loss or an increase in their appetite. For some people, they may experience acne, not just like breakouts on their face where they would normally get acne, but in other areas and parts of their bodies too. Maybe some experience nausea, heartburn, or hair loss when you're in the shower and you see like a noticeable amount of hair that you usually don't lose before. And so moving into mental signs of stress that we may experience due to overwhelming amounts of stress. This could be having poor concentration in classes, or even if you're just hanging out with friends and you're just not really caught up in the conversation, or you're caught up in other things. It could be memory loss, just the overall inability to remember things or people or certain events. It could maybe be a lack of creativity, or really just feeling like you're constantly worried about something, right? And like you're stuck in that state. And then moving on into what emotional stress could be, this could just be feeling really, so like in that state of like worry or like in that constant state of panic, like something's gonna go wrong, or ultimately really feeling just overwhelmed and frustrated or just anxious, right? I know for some people, it could just be like a random outburst, like if you're all of a sudden really frustrated, right? And you let that out on someone unintentionally, but that's just, your stress manifesting onto someone else and projecting onto them. It could be at the end of the day, an example of emotional stress is you get into the car and a really sad Olivia Rodrigo song is playing and you just start crying, right? That is an emotional response and sign of stress. So definitely just make sure that you're able to gauge when you are feeling some type of physical, mental, emotional stress, and really be able to distinguish what that is and why you are feeling that way, right? And give yourself a break. Make sure you're practicing and engaging within self-care within these moments.
Right. So let's talk about stress. So really what I want to emphasize here is that feeling stressed out or overwhelmed is normal. And it's okay to ask for help. Stress is something that's honestly unavoidable as college students. I know we've mentioned this before, but it's one of those things that doesn't hurt to be emphasized. Obviously, not everyone feels stressed in the same ways, just like Mireya mentioned earlier. And it can manifest itself on different levels depending on the person. And that's also something to be conscious about. It's also important to be aware that just because we're experiencing stress in a situation does not automatically mean the situation is a negative one. New and exciting things, such as moving away to college for the first time, can be exciting, but they can also be relatively stress inducing, as this might be the first time that you are away from family, right? Or for some, it's just even the idea of having to adjust to a new normal that can cause some stress. The last thing that I want to touch on here is that even if you are at a point where your stress is too much, or even if it isn't, even if you feel like you have a handle on things, but feel like you need to talk about it, don't be afraid to reach out for help, whether that support is coming from friends, family, or the counseling center. Please reach out. So one of the examples that we like to give here is it's important to take care of your mental health because just like when you are sick and you go to the doctor to relieve a sore throat, an achy body, or a fever, you go to your friends, your family, or the counseling center to help manage that stress, anxiety, or any issues with relationships.
All right. And so moving into assessing stress in your life. So responsibilities, expectation, or sorry, obligations, responsibilities slash obligations, expectations, and perfectionism. So what we recommend here within the responsibilities and obligations section is really to delegate, remove, and revise. So making sure that you're checking in with yourself as well as, having those frequent check-ins on, okay, and asking yourself, okay, well, what do I need to be doing? What are the most important tasks and things that need to be taken care of right now? What other things can wait? So just delegating what's most important and then going from there, making sure those priorities and just really having a clear sense of what needs to get done, right? In terms of having your responsibilities laid out. So say you have plans, weekend plans with your group of best friends one weekend, right? But you have a really big test that you need to study for that following Monday. Really just making sure and taking the time necessary in order to, plan ahead and really be ready for that test. So essentially just prioritizing what needs to get done and getting ahead of that stress. If there's a possibility, it could become too much. Or, just in general to ease the stress that could be there along the process and along the way. And in some cases, you will be needing to going ahead and removing those plans completely in order to be more productive within your priorities, and that's okay, right? There will be other opportunities to have fun with your friends. And ultimately, that focus should fall on Monday's big test. And then here we have expectations. And so the big questions really here to ask yourself are, whose expectations are these? Are these expectations you've set for yourself? Are they expectations others have placed onto you? Whose are these expectations coming from? And are these expectations even important to me? Sometimes as college students, we can feel a lot of pressure of expectations that come from other people in our lives, whether that's, our direct family or maybe our group of friends. An example of this could be maybe your parents are expecting a 4.0 at the end of every semester, no questions asked, or maybe they really want you to get involved with every student org or as many student orgs as possible, right? Because they really want you to get involved. Those expectations can sometimes become too much too quickly. And ultimately, not only are they unrealistic to really achieve, but they also lead to not only stress, but a quick burnout that happen by spreading yourself way too thin. And so just making sure that those expectations are realistic and that they're something that you really want to achieve. So from responsibilities, obligations, and our expectations that people may have or that you may have from yourself, this then all can lead us into perfectionism, right? Which really just feeds our procrastination, it damages our self-esteem, and it is unrealistic as well because no one is perfect. In these moments and kind of these yearnings for perfectionism, really just remember to be kind to yourself and give yourself some grace, especially when things don't go as planned or something unpredictable happens, because chances of something unpredictable and out of your control happening are pretty high. And really just remember that you can't control everything, and that's okay.
So this kind of leads us into talking about self-sabotage. So self-sabotage refers to any behaviors, actions, or thought patterns that can hold you back from being your best self. And so these items listed and shown here don't necessarily cause one to be stressed, but using them while stressed can worsen what you're already feeling in the first place. So coffee and caffeine products are very popular, right? Starbucks line is always long. And they're especially popular whenever we're going through midterms, finals, and all the big projects are in the way, and we need to squeeze in extra study time, or maybe we need to pull an all-nighter. But just be really mindful in how caffeine affects you, since it is still a drug and can leave you feeling jittery or anxious after consuming it. I know for me that I need to cut myself off from any caffeine after 3 p.m. Because then it affects how I go to sleep. It leaves me feeling jittery and a little anxious. So I have trouble sleeping, which affects my night and ultimately the next day, right? But I have also met a lot of people who can live off caffeine and thrive. They may drink a cup every hour, and they're unaffected. So just be really mindful in how it affects you because it could lead to self sabotage. If you are using nicotine, sugary foods, not eating enough, or maybe binge eating, or consuming alcohol and other drugs because of stress, it's a good time to stop and acknowledge that it is not being used recreationally like it is intended. Bottom line is, you shouldn't lean on drugs or alcohol or any of these things to make you feel better when you're down. They shouldn't be used as a way to escape or a way to cope. If you do choose to drink, make sure that you're drinking responsibly and always be cognizant of your emotional state prior to drinking or smoking, and even after consuming any sugary foods or drinks. And so these activities don't directly cause one to be stressed, but using them while stressed can exacerbate the symptoms, which is the one of the points we really want to emphasize.
And so then this brings us into practical approaches for letting go of stress. So starting off with clarifying priorities, I mentioned this a little bit. So really just having a clear sense of your responsibilities and your priorities is really crucial while trying to, both navigate school, college, maybe if you're involved in organizations, navigating that aspect of your college life, and also your family life, your personal life, all of those relationships as well. And so things can get lost in translation sometimes pretty easily, especially when you're navigating a lot of things and stay busy. So it's very important to have a clear sense and a clear understanding of your priorities and your needs. I know sometimes for some students, having a planner, whether that's like a physical one or a technological one, that can be very beneficial for them in order to keep track of their priorities. I personally am a big list person, so not only having like that physical planner that I can write in helps me out, but just really being able to write out lists of things that I need to get done, and really being able to just physically scratch that off my list makes me feel really good, like I'm getting things accomplished and I'm visually able to see that, right? So yeah, that's really important when you are trying to balance different aspects of your busy schedule. Next up is identifying and using resources. So allowing others to help you and help you achieve your goals is really part of being human. So utilizing the resources that you have around you is a part of that, right? So whether that's coming to the counseling center and scheduling that initial consultation with us, if that's something that you're interested in doing, definitely use the resources here. You can also utilize Slack, the Career Center, et cetera. There's so many different Resources that are available to y'all as currently enrolled Texas State students that come at no additional fee, so no extra costs. So really take advantage of that as they are included in your student fees. So all of these resources are here to help. So yeah, definitely take advantage of them. So next one is assertiveness. So I would say assertiveness and communication. So these next two ones kind of go hand in hand with one another, right? Starting off with assertiveness, really being able to be direct with what you're saying and within your communication, and being able to say no, right? So being able to say no to what is not reasonable for you right now in the present moment is not an act of selfishness, right? That's not you being selfish. That is you having the confidence in knowing yourself and knowing what your boundaries are and where your limitations are, and being able to really assert them, right? And if being assertive in that way and having to say no helps you balance your levels of stress, then ultimately that's a win for you. And you should be able to sit your assertiveness within saying no. And so within communication, right, also being assertive within your communication, it's also really important to have clear communication to maintain healthy relationships with people and with those around you. Oh, my bad. I just switched. There we go. My bad. Where was I? Communication. Yes. So it is really easy to, not clearly communicate with people, especially when you're really stressed out. So just making sure that you're taking the time, even if it's just to say, hey, you know what, I'm really stressed out right now. I have a lot on my plate. At least saying that you're stressed out is, taken a little better received than not saying anything at all and not communicating anything at all with your loved ones. And then lastly, here we have responsibility and control, right? So being able to take control and take responsibility of the things that you are able to change is the first step in lessening that overwhelming sense of stress, right? So ultimately just letting go of what is not for you and what is not yours frees up huge amounts of physical and emotional energy. If it's not for you, let it go. And so this is how, you kind of start to take responsibility and control over your mental health and well-being.
Okay, so when it comes to planning for stress reduction, these few bullets are a bit more self-explanatory, but it's still important to keep these in mind. Number one is just remembering to breathe. This can help recenter ourselves, and different breathing techniques such as diaphragmatic breathing or square breathing can be very beneficial to us. Next is being realistic when wanting to eliminate sabotaging behaviors, right? So maybe taking it one step at a time, maybe starting off by thinking, what is one thing that you can change starting today? For example, if you find yourself scrolling on TikTok for hours on end, losing sleep, maybe one thing that you could try is once you connect your phone to your charger, is setting it there and leaving it there because you know that it's already connected for the night. Um, it means that you won't have access to it, and this is kind of creating that boundary for yourself. This might also mean that you install apps that kind of help limit how much screen time you use each day, right? um, so just finding ways to help eliminate self-sabotaging behaviors. And so lastly, making sure that you're identifying healthy ways for you to relax and take breaks, because those are necessary to implement as college students. This is really just a reminding point to practice and engage with self-care. And remember that self-care is not a one size fits all. It's very customizable to your likes and interest. So whether that's taking a hot bubble bath, maybe doing yoga, cuddling with your pet, whatever it is, finding it and trying to add it into your routine. Just trying to dedicate some amount of your day to self-care so that you can refocus and relax.
All right, and so that ends our stress management portion of the webinar for today. So like I said, or like we mentioned earlier, if anyone has any questions about that, you can go ahead and pop that into the chat, and we will get to that at the end of the webinar. But so now we will go ahead and dive into the services that the Counseling Center offers to currently enrolled Texas State students, and the different also resources that we offer. And so this will be the start of that portion. And so at the Counseling Center here, we do have a team of really great mental professionals that are here to assist students to be successful by helping them address different personal and psychological issues that they may be dealing with, that may be, interfering with their ability to achieve their different goals. We work with students who are experiencing a range of problems and who are also experiencing different levels of distress. We do offer the individual one-on-one limited counseling that occurs roughly every 2 to 3 weeks. And we also do offer a highly popular and effective weekly group counseling with different group options there. We also do provide education and awareness regarding mental health and wellness through different presentations and activities on campus that we host. We also have urgent services and crisis response services and offer consultation for family, friends, and staff to help students connect with the appropriate level of care. Additionally, we also do or can assist students with referrals for therapy off campus, as well as helping them access medications for mental health concerns at the Student Health Center or off campus. So those are some of the things that we do offer. Oh, sorry, I was about to forget one. Another one that we do offer is, so our Counseling Center services, we do have, our hours are like the normal Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. And that's normally when you would be scheduled to be seeing one of our counselors, usually for that one-on-one or also our group counseling option. However, we do realize that students may need someone to talk to outside of these, regular office hours, so to speak. So if for whatever reason you or a friend or someone could benefit from speaking to one of our counselors at Texas State, but for whatever reason, say it's like a weekend or it's just a regular Tuesday, but it's like 9 p.m. outside of the hours that we're open, you can go ahead and still give us a call at our number, which will pop up in one of the next few slides. Just our regular office phone number, but make sure you press option number 2, and that will go ahead and get you connected with one of our on-call counselors. So that's still an option to go ahead and get connected with someone to speak to if you need that outside of our regular hours. And so going along with that, those are the things that we do offer here at the Counseling Center. But of course, there are some things that we can't offer as well. And so starting off with that, here at the Counseling Center, our services are designed to focus on more short-term goals. So some students will benefit from more longer-term, more frequent care, or they may require more specialized treatments than what we do offer at the Counseling Center. So if that is the case, then we will work closely with that student to provide resources to them and help them get connected to the appropriate care within the community. Also, our office doesn't provide academic advising. So it's a little different from what you would get like in high school, say with like a guidance counselor who helps you with like course scheduling and all that and like academic stuff. Rather, we have a team of mental health and psychological professionals who are here to help address transitional issues such as stress, anxiety, anger management, relationships, things like that. And so, yeah, another thing that we do within our educational outreach component is our webinar series. And so for those of y'all that are here today, today actually kicks off the start of our spring 2022 webinar series. So that's exciting. We have more different webinars to come as the spring semester carries on. So definitely keep your eye out for those with those details and everything as we move along.
Okay, so when it comes to accessing our services, the easiest way to get started is by using our online scheduling option for non-urgent appointments. As you can see here from the image, this is our website. This is where you would navigate to get to that tool. You're also more than welcome to call our office on the number listed here and schedule your initial consultation. But I do know that calling can be a little intimidating sometimes, so definitely take advantage of that online tool. Soon after scheduling your first appointment, you'll be asked to complete paperwork, and then you'll meet with the counselor for the initial consultation. And from there, that will determine the level of service that you might benefit from. It all depends on the student's need and their unique situation and concerns. So depending on what services best meet the student's need, counseling appointments will be scheduled, or a student might be referred to a more appropriate campus or community resource. The Counseling Center is committed to providing quality counseling services while reducing the transmission risk of COVID-19. So currently, all of our appointments are still via telemental health. And this is just the ongoing one while COVID-19 is in motion. Please keep in mind that there are no additional charges for the Counseling Center appointments. It is built into your student fees, like Mireya mentioned before. And then something also that's very important to note is that counseling is a confidential process. With the rare exception, information will not be released without your written permission. Your contact with the Counseling Center is not part of your academic record, and even your parents can't find out that you came into the Counseling Center without your written permission. If you do want to know more detailed information regarding that, it is on our website.
Okay, so moving along into one of our resources that we have here through the Counseling Center that I think is really beneficial. It is called Therapy Assistance Online, or TAO, like we like to call it. So yeah, this is something that's available to all Texas State students. This is pretty much an online program that contains several different activities, or it's kind of module style. And so they include useful information, different videos, as well as different activities to help you navigate and develop skills to help you navigate common mental health concerns and develop skills around that and specifically depression and anxiety. And so TAO can be easily accessed. Like I said, it's an online program. So it's accessed through the Counseling Center website under our self-help resources. And it's available 24/7 as long as you have like a smartphone, tablet, computer. So it also can be used individually on its own as a self-help tool, or it can also be used in conjunction with therapy if that's something that you're already doing, or if that's something that you're starting to think about doing. And TAO also contains a library full of relaxation meditations for free. And this is free to y'all, and just make sure if this is of interest to anyone, when you do that initial sign in, make sure that you just use your Texas State Net ID, and then you'll get it for free. Otherwise, it'll make you pay. So just as a reminder.
Okay, jumping into another available resources that we have is our at-risk training. It can also be accessed through our website. Make sure that you log in with your Texas State Net ID information. So at risk is very good if you've ever found um, yourself and you've asked yourself, how do you talk to a friend that you're worried about? How do you know when a friend needs help? Where can you and your friend go to for help? So at risk offers self-paced, guided practice scenarios. It allows you to go back and make different choices in terms of how you would respond, and will help you recognize signs of distress and ways to approach other students, and offer ways to support and offer resources. So it's free, interactive, and it takes approximately 45 minutes to complete. We have we've both done the training and have found it very helpful. Um, Once you finish it, it does offer you a certificate of completion. However, we do recommend that you take this at least once a year just to stay alert and recognize signs as they come up.
All right, and so this brings us to our contact slide. So yeah, for our physical location, we are located in or on the 5th floor of LBJ Student Center in room 5-4.1, right next to ODS, Office of Disability Services. And so this is our phone number. And like I said, you can still give us a call on after hours or like a weekend if you need to, if you or someone that you know may need it. Just make sure that you press option number 2. You can also use that to schedule the initial consultation, as Yesenia mentioned, or you can also use our online scheduling tool that you can find at our website, which is counseling.txstate.edu. And then also, if y'all are interested in keeping up with us via social media, with the different events and activities that we may host throughout the year, you can go ahead and give us a follow on or a like on Facebook, a follow on Instagram and Twitter, and that's our handle right there, TXSTCC. And then yeah, so just leave that there for a second for y'all.
Okay, so before we get into the Q&A portion, we do want to leave you with one more quote that we kind of feel like encompasses almost everything that we've talked about today, and that is, don't let your mind bully your body into believing it must carry the burden of its worries, and that is by Astrid Alada. Okay, and before we get into the Q&A portion, I do want to take some time and just let you know, if you have the opportunity to take this survey, it's a feedback survey on our presentation, and the information that you put on there is very helpful for future presentations. All the information that you need is on there. Today's date, it's Tuesday. And again, our presentation was on stress management. I'm Yesenia, and Mireya was here with us.
Yeah, thank you all so much for joining. We really appreciate it.
If you do have any questions, go ahead and drop them in the Q&A box, and we'll just take a few minutes to answer them, or if you want to chat them. But again, you can, if you have any questions that come up later, you can always contact the counseling center, and we will also share our emails if you wanted to get in contact with us that way. We do have a question, and it's, can you please send the YouTube link for the video? So this presentation, we will get it transcribed and then we will upload it to YouTube. But once that is finished, we usually have it on our YouTube within a few days. So maybe by the end of this week. And you can actually access our all presentations through our website on the recorded presentations section of our website.
Yeah, I was gonna say too, also Yesenia, if maybe you could drop in the YouTube link for a YouTube account in the chat.
Yes, I will add that as well.
Thank you. And Yesenia and I have both added our emails into the chat for anyone in case they have any questions or anything like that. And Yesenia will go ahead and drop in the link for our YouTube that already has some past webinar presentations on there. So definitely look those over if they look of interest to y'all. And this presentation will hopefully be on within a couple weeks.
Yes, and then give me just 1 second for our YouTube.
Yeah, no, yeah, we're all good. It takes time. But yeah, again, we just want to say thank you for joining us today. And then once Yesenia gets that dropped into the chat, we can go ahead and end for today. We really do appreciate y'all showing up.
Okay, I am adding the link for YouTube that you can all find our other videos, and that just has a list of all the videos that the Counseling Center has released. Again, thank you all for being here, and I hope you all have a wonderful day.
Yeah, have a great day. Thank y'all.